Joining us now is Time.com's James Poniewozik. Poniewozik. I did it right this time.
Yeah, you got it.
James, thanks so much for joining us. I appreciate you being here this morning. How did this come down? Because it seemed like a week and a half ago, Leno was not on board with this, and there were rumors that he was going to hop over to Fox and stuff, and now all of a sudden he seems graciously, completely supportive.
Well, seems. I mean, he would be, I don't know if he's okay with it or not. He would be saying exactly the same things, whether he was okay with it or not. He said much the same things in 2004 when NBC said that Conan was going to take over The Tonight Show in 2009, and Leno said, it's time for me to move on. I need to take Mavis out to dinner, etc. So, who knows? The big question for NBC is, as you were alluding to, does Leno have enough other options now to be a threat to them?
Yeah, and what do you think? Does he?
Not as many as he did before, which I think is maybe part of the reason that NBC is now basically doing the exact same thing for much of the same reasons that they did with Conan. Back then, in 2009, part of the reason, there were many reasons, but part of the reason that they tried to, appease Jay Leno by giving him his primetime show when Conan took over The Tonight Show was that they were terrified that Leno was going to go to probably ABC at the time and set up a competitor that would beat them.
Right.
Now Jimmy Kimmel, this is maybe one of many factors playing in here. He's at 11:30 now. He's doing increasingly well, and ABC is no longer an option. Fox could be, but that's been Fox has sort of toyed with this idea in the past, including with Conan, and never gotten it off the ground. So it's just maybe NBC sees less of a threat now.
Well, I mean, it could go to Fox. I mean, you're right about that. But it seems to me, though, when I sort of look at it, that this one feels different than the Conan O'Brien disaster. It does appear that he's sort of like, okay, you're going to give me my due. You're not giving me the bum's rush. We're going to have time to do a nice transition. I get to take my victory lap. I have time to do all the things that I want to do before I go. And I'm leaving in the hands of Jimmy Fallon in number one.
It could be. I mean, they've at least done a very good job of presenting it that way. And I think, the thing is, Jay Leno is, he's a professional. I think if he doesn't see something in it for him, I don't see him adapting a scorched earth policy to anything.
It sort of suggested though that the other day when he was talking about the weasels at NBC and all that he had a different take on it. What do you think happened?
Negotiations. I mean, that's sort of the leverage at the time that he had at the time, and now I think there are reports that NBC, the top brass reached out to him, kind of smoothed things over. And, maybe things are actually smoothed over. Maybe he's biding his time and seeing what other options he has. But in any event, even if Jay does end up doing something else, whether it's going to Fox, going to cable, it's better for NBC if they have him leave on as good terms as is possible.
Sure.
Because, he's going to be occupying that real estate for a while.
Talking about Jimmy Fallon, I mean, it seems to me Conan O'Brien had more of a name recognition. He had been doing the late night show longer there at NBC, certainly longer than Jimmy Fallon has been doing it. Are Jimmy Fallon's numbers really that good that he has earned this spot, or is it really just because his numbers are good with that key demographic, the younger viewer?
Yeah, as I said before, the NBC is kind of doing it for the same reasons, as they did with Conan, which, if they make sense now, kind of made sense later. He does do better among a younger demographic, and now the thing is, there is Jimmy Kimmel out there who is cutting into Jay in the younger demographic, and NBC is, I guess, looking more at the long term. It's a few years later now, so the demographics have progressed that much more. So I think the idea is that NBC is saying, okay, we're programming for our future. We want to make sure we preserve that number one. Thing is, NBC has not had a great history of very long-term thinking in a lot of its public decisions lately. So we'll see. It could be entirely smooth. It could be very, shall we say, entertaining.
But I remember that it was the stations that got upset the last time around.
The local affiliates.
The local affiliates, because the numbers went down, and that's a very lucrative time for them. And by the way, they want that a good follow-on show to their local news. And they were very upset about it, and it was really the local stations that forced. Have they smoothed it over with the local stations?
Well, and they were also very upset at the time that Jay Leno's numbers in prime times were bad leading into their local news.
Right,
Exactly.
they moved Jay to 10
Right.
o'clock, yeah.
Now, one thing that was a big factor back then was that was coming just as Comcast was buying NBC, and the affiliates could have really screwed up that deal by being angry, so they had a kind of unique amount of leverage at the time. Now, NBC, I don't know if, the affiliates will love it if Fallon's numbers go down when he takes over, which they probably will, at least for a while. Everybody's numbers do when they take over. Leno's did. But NBC is maybe better positioned because Comcast has already bought them to, kind of force this on the affiliates for a while and say, you're just going to have to learn to like this for a while. We'll see how this plays out in a few years. James
Poniewozik, he's the entertainment columnist over there at Time.com. And really quickly, we're in Washington, D.C. We talk about everything is through a political spectrum here. A lot of people have been noticing that Jay Leno's humor, his stand-up, his monologue there, has been a little bit more critical of President Obama recently. And Jimmy Fallon, on the other hand, I mean, it's almost like the president and the first lady, they have carte blanche to come in and do whatever sketch they want on his show. Is there any politics involved here, do you think?
I don't think there's politics involved in the decision, who hosts. The NBC is interested in the politics of making money. I don't see Jimmy Fallon as ever being a very political late-night host, period, besides sort of wanting to, pal around with who's the president at the time or whatever.
No matter who the president is.
He's not really bitingly political a guy.
All right. Well, we'll certainly keep an eye on that. James Poniewozik, thanks so much for joining us.
Sure.
I appreciate it. That's James Poniewozik from Time.com.